apology for lateness. Coastal hazards, it's truly a wicked problem, and that's what we're dealing with right now. And so Chris, Simon and myself, we're in heavy discussion, and we've forgot the time that we were meant to be here at 10 o'clock. We also did appear in front of a select committee this morning, and halfway through we froze, so we were kicked out technically. It was a little bit disappointing, but at least we got to say what we wanted to say. They've read our submission, and Katie Nimmin was so friendly to assist us in that. So hopefully she, if there's any questions following, she'll get back to us. Okay, welcome everyone. It's a bit of a grey day out there, but it's hopefully today we'll have a bright meeting. First of all, I would like to open with a karakia, and I ask Te Wārama to open, and she explained to me that her name actually means lights on the water. Isn't that beautiful, you know? Who can say that they actually got a name that actually means something, you know? So please, could you open up for us?
Kia ora, and tēnā koe, Chair. If I can open us with a karakia that I hope we're all familiar with, and I will set the pace and the time. So, whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, te hei mauriura. Mauriura.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Okay, there is a whole lot of housekeeping. Normally I've got that in front of us, but I'll do it off the top of my head and I'll give it the best I can. So if it's long and strong, we actually move up the hill and we will follow one of the staff. I'm not from Napier, so I'm actually not sure where that will be. It's up that way, up the hill. There we go. Toilets are behind through the doors, and you can see all the exit signs. Please have your cell phones off. That'll be really great. And we are live streamed, so just be aware of that, that people at home can see exactly what you're doing, including the chair. There are apologies. We've got Keith Price and we have Charles Lambert. Those are the apologies. Can I just have a move in a second for apologies? You're not from the same council, I'm just making sure of that.
No, we're good for it.
All those in favour say aye.
No.
No? Thank you. Are there any conflict of interest that we need to declare? No one? Great. Okay, then we go to item 3, confirmation of the minutes of the Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazard Strategy Joint Committee meeting held on the 17th of May 2024. Are there any alterations that need to be made? People weren't happy with, they were misquoted. If not, can I please have a mover that we accept these minutes? Councillor Corbyn, Councillor Simpson, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. Okay, and now we go to one of the items that we always like when we actually have real people in front of us, and they actually bring us real issues and real solutions as well. So I would like to ask Morris if you could bring your team up and explain to us what you have for us, to give us some indication on what is required, what is the issue, and what is the solution. I always like it when I have staff and they come to me, and you have different types of staff. One staff says, oh, the mower is broken, and they look at you, what are you going to do about it, boss? Or you have someone else and says, the mower is broken, but there's two options we can do. We can actually buy new blades that cost you $150, or I can go and get them repaired and it only costs $75. Let's do that one, okay? And that's so much easier to manage. So here we actually got a team in front of us that actually will have some issues that they would like to talk us about, but also got a solution, which is really great. Morris, take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Morris Smith. I actually was part of the Coastal Hazard Strategy in the number of years that we went through all the working processes, etc., as the Te Wanga representative on the committee. So, but basically how our little group is formed, we've got Tom here, and we've got Roy here as part of a little working committee, and there's another couple of members that can't make it here today. And this followed a community meeting. We had over 100 people attend a meeting following the cyclone. So, because we had a number of erosion issues, so we formed this little committee to look at our erosion issues. we tried to identify what actually caused these particular issues and the effects that they had on our beachfront, along with our stormwater network. But it was quite interesting, and this is based on observation, that funnily enough, well, no, it's not funnily enough, when we had the Maitocha, it actually ended up 50 metres wide. It's normally a stream which flows into the lagoon at Tiawonga, and normally you can step over it during the summer, but during the cyclone it was 50 metres wide. So we ended up with this enormous delta of shingle which extended right out to a reef which runs offshore, and in effect I think it formed a groin. So what that did, it changed the direction of the sea, which normally curves around the bay, and you'll see in some of Tom's illustrations of what actually occurred. And it directed the sea straight into the sea crest and breached into the lagoon, the Tiawonga Lagoon, which is an important part of our stormwater network. But it's also interesting, if you go back into history, and we researched and looked at some of the minutes of the previous community meetings, and this phenomenon actually occurred twice before, in the 60s and in the 70s. So this is, we felt this was actually quite interesting. So just before I hand over to Tom, I think I had a quick look of your submission that you put into the climate adaptation strategy, which I thought was very, very relevant to our cause, and we concur entirely. And this is a quote straight from it. It is essential that we include the community in the decisions and empower them to lead the process where appropriate. I think that's a great, great comment. And your recommendation, we owe it to the community to move faster and more efficiently, need to lift standards, increase resilience, can't stand back and allow events like the Cyclone Gabriel to drive change. So with those comments, we concur entirely. So now I'll hand over to Tom to take you through some of the things that we've given you more technical detail on what our solution is.
Thanks, Morris. Just trying to get the IT going to make sure we can get the presentation flowing. So I'm try the old plug in, unplug trick. Any advice, Leanne, on how to get this presenting? This is the right cable, yeah?
Should be.
It's talking to
Oh,
something.
there it is.
Not that was on the screen before.
Because I think there's multiple screens, Simon.
Might be, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can do the old.
There's a recurring theme here, Simon. This morning we got frozen when it was your computer, and again, this time, not quite getting it right.
Thanks for pointing that out. Appreciate that.
Actually, we're very fortunate to we've got a geotechnical engineer as part of our group. Very handy to have one of those in the community.
Something was on. It might have been multi-screen, eh?
Yeah.
Coming up now.
It's trying.
It says plug in the HDMI cable to your personal device.
Might not be playing ball.
Either that, Leanne, or you could download from the link that I sent you this morning.
I have a
Is it the
terabyte
same
drive that I
one?
could plug in.
Yeah, let's try that.
Like that.
It's not a screen
Oh, it might be an adapter problem.
adapter.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
That's not yours.
no, that's not me.
No, that's the,
That's this one.
that's the room one.
Just a PowerPoint, yeah, but it's a big file. It's
Got a couple of videos just to kind of keep everyone interested in it.
Yeah.
We'll get it sorted. We've been to the moon, apparently.
Apparently.
Restrictions. I am. I've got my surface.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what we should.
Just not. It's clearly not my.
No, it's not.
Start a conversion? Download.
You working on it as well?
HTC, did you just put that straight into this?
Yeah.
We'll get them, Morris. Yeah.
Oh, it could be worth the wait.
Apologies for the delay.
If you read the lady's document. Amazing.
Technology is incredible.
Don't ask me for head jokes.
Have you got, another laptop?
Just took you that long. Yeah.
It's just the tablet that's not.
Right.
But then the IT will book USBs.
I like it. Too many IT rules.
Oh, gonna log in. Is it?
Ah, close that. Messy screen. Just go into files.
This one comes straight up. Yeah, this IT blocked USB drives.
Yeah, so it probably won't read here either.
Can you download it from here?
No, Leanne's got a link that she's
big.
downloading at the moment, but yeah, this is part of
It
our
won't let me in to download it, so
IP
you go for
protection.
it.
You can't access Dropbox.
You can't see that, can I?
It's just doing the same as the other computer, blocking it.
Yeah.
Let's choose that, mate.
Should we move to the next item, Chair?
But that's what I'm just going to have a look at now.
Yeah, so all of our laptops won't accept
But we've got visitors up the front.
downloading
I thought you
IP
had it
when
on
it
your
shouldn't.
Just
laptop.
give it one more
So
go.
that's
With Tom's laptop and then,
yeah.
Is that your laptop that he was using? Oh. I was hoping I could download it.
Downloading?
Full-time lucky.
No, it's not downloading from the link either.
Yeah.
Let me try it.
Go back, we've seen this, we'll go back and do that one. I think this is slightly different, a bit more technical, this bit.
who's got the biggest laptop?
Yes, talking to Tom, he said, no. So that was great.
Oh, if it's already on.
This one's a bit more technical,
Plug that in there
oh,
now.
we saw.
Should be top up.
If you could let me in the room, I can.
Yeah.
Thinking. We're in.
Just turn that down.
Right now.
We haven't got it up here, though.
Just make sure you're muted, Simon.
Yep, done that. All right,
Look at that.
Wait.
finally.
Tom, we're in.
Or if I can just find the right one.
Tom, we've got it up behind you now, so
Oh, you've got it?
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
from me, so you just tell me and I'll click. through.
Okay.
I'll bring it down to you. If you click on this.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't freeze on us.
IT. Oh, thanks, Simon. Apologies, everyone.
No.
IT. Okay, so, thanks, Morris, for the introduction, everyone. So just from memory again, so my name is Tom Bunny. I'm a local Te Wanga resident. I've been there for about 10 years. I'm also a geotechnical engineer locally. So bringing to this group some sort of little bit of different knowledge and sort of some sound bit of engineering input, which has been really beneficial, I think. There's going to be some products in here that we're talking about and just highlighting. There's no conflict of interest. I don't have any conflict of interest with any products shown today, so it's just something that we as a group have come up together. Just to kick off, just acknowledgement of all the work that you guys have done before, so we're not here to rain on anyone's parade. We're here quite constructively to try and point out some of our local concerns, a little bit, some more specifics, I think, locally that might not be aware of. But just thank you for everyone here who's done all this work in the background and behind. It's really, really appreciated. So we are here to represent the Te Wonga community. We're here to present options for to you guys, the Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazard Strategy Group to consider. For us, we understand that this is going to take some time to implement the strategy, and for us, we've got some immediate risks that we are concerned about. So we'd like to sort of talk about some interim measures that we might be able to incorporate or be considered that we think will also complement what you guys are already talking about and using. By highlighting these concerns, we think we can hopefully prompt some action between councils and stakeholders and help to improve resilience for our communities. So these options that we're going to present today, as I said, we're going to complement the groin and the berm options, we believe. And as I mentioned before, these solutions that we're talking about for the strategy from the Tangoio to Clifton strategy group, going to take some time to implement. So it's really important that we put into context what we're talking about today is probably a more immediate solution that won't interfere. So these are just a few aerial photos that we pulled out of RetroLens that we've been able to geo-reference, so as closely as we can pinpoint certain features that are represented in all the photos and just overlay them over top so we can kind of see the changes that have occurred. So this is one in 1939. You've got Maraetocha River in the bottom right there heading out to the coast, and what we call the Te Wonga Lagoon, which is that huge body of water which looks quite bright in the middle there. So in this photo here, actually very large. Sorry, bit of a delay. 1948, very similar. There's a little bit more development in the coast here. The hall hasn't been built, but it sits about here. We've got a bridge crossing, which I think might be the same bridge crossing, probably an older version to the Te Wonga Lagoon, but a huge body of water. And you can notice that the river in these photos don't actually go out to the sea. They all curve to the left favourably and run along the coast, which is in line with the work you guys have done about longshore drift and obviously the impacting from the sea. So 1950, bit of the same. Jump forward 1988, bit more what it looks like now. We've got the campground that's being built, about to be built and starting here. The Te Wonga Lagoon is very similar to what it looks like now. And that's the Te Wonga that we pretty much know today. January 2023, which is just before Cyclone Gabrielle, you can see in the top right the river is heading out into the sea here. This gets periodically cleared with a digger so we can get ship gravel and shingle can freely flow out, and the water obviously. If you look at the top right, you can see in Cyclone Gabrielle what Morris was talking about with this big gravel berm that occurred. Cyclone Gabrielle, which sent all the shingle down the river, created this large gravel bar, and redirected the wave impact quite directly into where the Te Wonga Lagoon is. And the result of that was quite significant erosion that occurred roughly along this line here. This impacted mainly, so we lost about 4 metres of a reserve berm here. So just out of context, the community Te Wonga Hall is this building here. Te Wonga Lagoon, obviously, so we lost 4 metres of berm along here. The sea eroded to within 4 metres of that lagoon wall. And actually overflowed into the lagoon at that point and subsequent storms. And we lost our car park by half. So what we call the surfers car park, where all the surfers and the fishermen come out and park. Yeah, so we've lost that, and that's still damaged today. This is a short video, which isn't Cyclone Gabrielle, but it's a subsequent storm, 10th of July, that just kind of puts into context what we're dealing with. These are 2 metre sea swells, so they're not big sea swells that we get. They're in the larger end of it, but this is in the extent of the area between the hall and the car park. The car park is in the far end, but these trees here, so we've lost 4 metres of land here, quite significantly. These trees here were obviously up at this level, Cyclone Gabriel, and have all been undermined and damaged, so just putting into context what we're dealing with. Another photo here of inundation. So this is the same storm event, 10th of July, 2 metre sea swell, broaching the beach crest and water and sand pouring into the lagoon, and this is what's causing blockaging of our lagoon. The lagoon, I forgot to mention at the moment, isn't just a lagoon, it's our Tiawonga Hastings District Council stormwater sump. So photos again, just this is the stormwater system, sorry, the flooding into the stream that goes into the lagoon, and a photo of the beach crest lagoon on the left, and it doesn't look drastic here, but this is where this is the beach, this is where we've lost our car park area, so some significant damage. So our point is the Tiawonga stormwater system is currently under threat. Couple more photos. So the photo on the left is the 4 metre reserve wall that's been lost in the beach, and the photo on the right is an old block wall that's been protecting the Tiawonga Hall for some time, and is actually doing not a bad job in respect to everything else. You can see on the photo on the right, I probably can't see very well, but this is all rubble from previous man-made filling time, and it's full of telephone poles and just concrete from debris. So because the beach is now cutting into this is all spilling onto the beach now. So there's some hazards that are associated with that potentially. These two photos are quite interesting. This is the photo on the left, 3rd of July after Cyclone Gabriel. So this was beach renourishment. So this is a vehicle track to try and relink the car park area. So the car park, Steppers car park is in the photo in the background. And this is part of the current resource consent, I think. I understand that.
Well, that was actually, it was a reaction from the district council done under the immediate provisions of the RMA. They came in and put in, I don't know how many metres of gravel to try and protect the lagoon, because at this point the sea was right up within 3 metres and overlapping into the lagoon. So that was dumped in there. I don't know what it was.
We guesstimated sort of 300 cube to 400 cube, not 100% sure the final. But
Just the point, and it did protect us initially for a very short period.
The point being, 7 days later, similar photo, same gone. It's just been washed away. It's gone. So this beach renourishment is great, but it doesn't protect us very long. It's basically for the next reasonable storm event, and it's just washed down the beach. So as an interim method, great, but doesn't prolong as long as I think probably what we think it does. So discussion here is around, is there a more sustainable approach that we can consider that can protect council assets and infrastructure and coastal erosion? Just a quick one to put into context. This is just straight off the Hastings District Council intramaps, and this just shows the Tiawonga region and the stormwater system, which are the green lines here, and it doesn't clearly show this, but basically all these green lines all eventually funnel into the Tiawonga Lagoon. And that's important because the Tiawonga Lagoon is a passive sump, so it doesn't rely on any pump station or anything to get that water out. We rely on that to store stormwater until low tide, and then that water's released just naturally through a drain into the Maraetocha River and then out to the sea. So
just to add to that, during the cyclone, and when that filled up, we actually ended up with quite a lot of flooding in some houses, and also saturated the power cables, and we lost power for it, and they had to do quite a bit of work to fix the power.
So, we're here to talk about some temporary solutions to provide basic protection to that asset and along the beach for coastal erosion. So this is something that you guys might have, something that the community has come together. So we've been talking very closely with Hastings District Council with us, and particularly Graham Henson. So I'll point him out, he's sitting here today, who's been working with us on this. So as a group, we've looked into different options outside of what you guys have been doing, but probably a little bit more recently, into the rock wall options, which are the limestone walls, which are precedent. So those are the ones that are built out at Clifton and Cape Coast Corner. There was some groins, sheet piling, and then we particularly have looked at probably two other alternatives. One is an eco reef, which is this solution here, and Westlock, which is another off-the-shelf solution, which is a reinforced concrete block type solution that locks them together. Both have their benefits, but from a community perspective, we've had some consultation sort of locally with the community, and there's some general conversation that sort of this eco reef one is preferred at the moment. So I'm going to talk to you about eco reef today. So this is just a real quick video that they've provided that kind of goes into what the block is, and it has sound with it, which won't be shown, but it doesn't matter. So it's a modular. I'll let it play actually. Comes with some cool noise. So hexagonal shape is deliberate. Honeycomb shape, bees, very strong in the environment. Interlocking modules, which is very important. Stack up on top of each other, and they can interlock. So, this product was developed locally in New Zealand. That photo there is south coast of the Wairarapa, Ngāwi. Jump to the next slide. So this product here developed in the south coast, Wairarapa, Cape Palliser, Ngāwi area, as a result of severe coastal erosion on the road network down there. This product is backed by engineering, documentation and design by an engineering outfit called Hofcon, who are based in Kapiti Coast, a very, very good engineering outfit. Essentially, it's a modular reinforced concrete blocks, obviously hexagonal in shape. Essentially, inside of these hexagonal shapes are filled with local fill. So out here at Tiawonga, it would be gravel, which falls in line with our current resource consent for beach renourishment, so there's not too much change here. And effectively, it just grabs and holds onto that material, and it forms one solid unit. They interlock together, so they basically rely on the fill and the weight of each cell that's sort of sitting on top of each other, and they're very good with flexibility and ground movement. They have a 100-year design life, so that's the structural concrete component and the steel. The geometry of the modules allow for dissipation of wave energy, so these are built totally for the marine environment. As a cell structure, they look like this. Some of the cells, not all of them, but you'll see there's connection points here, which are flexible. These are not in every cell, so they're only in some cells, especially mainly the ones that are on the external part of the wall that may be more susceptible to movement. The others are relying just purely on weight, so there's not a lot of steel reinforcement, i.e. much better for durability. I'll just flick through this quickly. I won't go into engineering, but just these points are just backing up there is engineering basis behind this. 40 MPa concrete, fibre reinforced concretes. That's the other important thing. There's no steel in these concretes. They're thin fibre reinforcement, which is often used in engineering to increase the tensile strength of the concrete. They've got designs there that are looking into wave impact designs and what they can take, and debris impact, so particularly looking at 2-ton logs in a river scenario that are floating down and bashing into them. So they've got some information on that. In terms of the application, this is sort of essentially what they've been designed for. So we've got a coastal erosion zone, exactly our case here on the left-hand side. Build these, and then over a period of time, the cell structure is built, captures gravel and soil. And I spoke with Fred, who's the owner, this morning on this. Actually, I'll come into that a bit later. Applications, they also develop groin function as well, interestingly. Probably a little bit more expensive than what we're looking at with blocks, but there's an application there for that, so just out of interest. And what they've found with their testing is the wave dispersal. So the modular shape of these structures and the way they're formed, the refraction that you get with normal concrete solid walls, you get waves hitting them and waves refracting, are much more reduced with this structure. So therefore you get less maladaptation, which is a name that I've learnt through this group, maladaptation. So some considerations there for erosion down the line or risk of further erosion to neighbours next door.
I think also an important point with this particular solution, you can actually add to it and potentially as a pathway, and if you meet particular trigger points, you can actually add to it to extend its life.
Yep. So this is the Ngawi location, so severe erosion, that obviously took out the road. Not too dissimilar to our environment. Ngawi is obviously facing south, so it gets all that coastal sea energy from the south. The beach is sand and gravels. It looks on the photo there, it looks mainly sand at the moment, which, but very dynamic beach, very similar to what we've got. The wall after it's been built, intact, and then we've got a cool little video here which actually shows that in action with some good wave action, which is quite interesting. So this is not a huge swell, but a reasonable swell. So obviously, the way that these cells form, this is what they're trying to show, is that wave hits it, it's not hitting a solid brick wall, it's basically breaking it up through the geometry of those rocks, and then the wave refracts less as it comes back. I'm saying that there is still some wave refraction, but I think in most solid sea cases with a wall, can't have. So spoke with Fred this morning, who's the developer on this, just to kind of let him know that we're presenting to you guys, and they are monitoring this wall and other walls, so they haven't just built and walked away, they are monitoring with survey and to see how much beach sediments have been built up and the wall itself, and his feedback so far, so this wall's been built for 2 years now, so it's been sit out there for 2 years. So there is more gravel, they believe, and sediments that have been built in front of this wall because of this wall, so it's actually leading to build up of the beach in front, and there's no movement that they can see discernibly in the wall structure at the moment, so it's very pleasing, and they're going to continue to do so to monitor that. The Eco Reef solutions, this is what Eco Reef have provided for us for an artist's impression of what it might look like out at Te Wanga. This was sort of early days and it hasn't gone into much detail, and the location of this may not be the exact location, but it just gives you an indication where it might sit. So at the moment this is protecting the main lagoon. In this photo, what it may not be protecting, or what discussion is the outlet for the lagoon comes through the stream into the Manawa Totara. So through design and further detailing of how better protect that, I think is something that we need to work through. Another artisan representation of what that might look like locally. So the next few slides is sort of trying to tie this into the current strategy. So this group strategy, the Tangoio Clifton group strategy, and I don't know if you guys have seen these images before, and but essentially this is the model. It's not a clear representation, obviously, of the beach, but this is the two preferred models, the two preferred Tangoio to Clifton options for Te Wanga. C2 is a 20-metre long groin here at the Tuki groin. And the idea behind that is there's gravel build-up and behind due to longshore drift. So it will slowly, progressively build up and behind. Te Wanga sits out here. So you can imagine Te Wanga will take some time to build up down here before we probably see some real protection down here. Our main points for these options here are, we know this process, as I said right at the start, is going to take several years to go through. So the reality for us is, we're talking 5 years down the line before we start seeing some beach build up, and maybe even long before it reaches Te Wanga. So we were talking with our group about some interim measures where we are protecting these high value assets down here at the moment, so Tiwanga Lagoon particularly, and for the interim until it builds up and reaches down, then we think it'll actually provide a lot of benefit, i.e. holding on to those materials longer rather than allowing that longshore drift to remove it. So that's option C2. The other option was D2, which are shorter groins but more of them down the beach, and we're sort of saying the same thing for that. Probably got some concerns about these multiple groins in Tiwanga and where they sit, and I don't know the detail behind these. This is probably a personal point for me. I'm a surfer out at Tiwanga, so I really enjoy that out there, and where those groins might sit, whether it changes too much to the beach, not too sure, but what we're saying is some interim measures out there would be beneficial. These options, I believe, are in line with building larger berms, which go up to quite significant heights. I'm assuming these are as a protection of coastal inundation and sea level rise. So, I mean, we believe these will be complementary to these, if they are built and these berms are crossing over top, because they'll provide added protection to them. So they won't be a limiting factor to building berms if this is the preferred option moving forward. Just a couple of final slides here. So this is sort of stage one protection of Tiwanga we were talking about for the lagoon we discussed before. We were really interested in a stage two approach. So stage two approach between the first stage one, protecting the Tiwanga Hall and running down to where private property is before it starts. That's the Tiwanga domain. We've got some costings on that, which we're talking to Hastings District Council about, and I don't have them here, but
Just to give you now, I think just a rough costing to do the first section of round about a bit over 200 metres of Graham, I think he's got the figures there. It was just a bit under $1 million to do that section, and also that accounted for Eco Reef. They were going to give us 60 metres at cost, and the balance would be at full price. And the other section, I think, was about a 1.3 million. So all up around about to the whole job, about 2.3, 2.4 million. Is that right, Graham, or based on your figures?
Slightly more, Morris.
Slightly more?
yeah. So essentially that's us. So just kind of summarising, we believe this is a product, as an interim product. We think it will fit in with the existing Tangoio to Clifton strategy. Are we going to say something?
I've got a couple of points. Have you got any more?
No.
Okay.
No, you go. And yeah.
Thanks, Tom. We're really pleased with Tom's work, and the response from District Council was very positive. The elephant in the room is the funding issue, but and that will have to be addressed in some way, shape and form, but it's not today's conversation. For any funding decisions, it's critical that decision makers are confident that this is going to align with the coastal. If it doesn't, it's never going to go anywhere until you guys essentially green light it as a appropriate adaptive step. I haven't been part of this group. I know you've done years of work. I just wonder though that if this had been on the table some years ago, would other decisions have possibly been made? Would this have been given a go? Because from my non-engineering perspective, I look at this and I look at the data and I think, could this be an alternative path, not just to protect Tiwanga, but used as a model to see whether 57,000 cubic metres of replenishment a year, which is what these other models are requiring, if you just even think of the carbon footprint of trucking hundreds and thousands of trucks every year, if this could alleviate that in some way, even by 20 or 30%, you're talking enormous amounts of less truck movement, less cost, less carbon. And in a world where we're trying to think about, we're adapting to climate change, which I think we can all agree is carbon-based, we've got a solution that requires an incredible amount of transportation. using carbon. So if we can come up with a solution, and I think that's why I would like to appeal to this, not just as an immediate solution to the Tiawonga, because if the stormwater system goes, we're in dog do, basically. We haven't got a stormwater system, and an emergency one will have to be built. And our appeal to the two councils is that's going to cost a lot more than this wall. Build the wall, prevent a known risk that is going to happen at some point, potentially tomorrow if we have a major storm. So that carbon reduction and the fact that this model, if we put it in there, by the time this strategy starts to get traction, which we know is going to be 4 to 5 years before any works would begin, would that be a reasonable conclusion? Over those 4 to 5 years, if this can get in long before that, that evidence that's produced from that might significantly impact on other decisions along a coast, which is essentially the same coast right through to Tangoio, which could then make a marked difference to the whole strategy. The idea of an 8-metre berm and tens of thousands of truckloads of soil. I'm not saying this would solve that, but if it could reduce it, that would have a major impact on the funding challenge that you guys are facing and the long-term solutions. So our appeal is if we can get this into the system and we can go back to the councils and say, this is green lighted by you guys, can we have a serious conversation about funding?
Good, thank you. Let's open it up for questions, and maybe, Chris, if you could, because we've got a live question just there from Roy that he's just asked, if you maybe could respond to that regarding if this was on the table.
So, first thing, it is on the table. So you've obviously brought it to us and identified us, and I guess TAG have an action, as is in the paper, to take this away and sort of provide some advice to the committee about the consistency with the long-term strategy. So we've taken that on board as a piece of work to do. Of course, it primarily addresses the short-term erosion risk rather than the longer-term inundation risk. So I think there's probably an acknowledgement it's more of a short-term erosion risk solution. But that's where we're at. It's been highlighted, it's been formally presented here today. So we've got a task to determine whether it's complementary or not, and from your presentation it appears so. One of the challenges I think we're wrestling with is where we've been through a comprehensive community-based process to come up with a pathway, how those pathways can be amended, because there's always new best practice or things change over time. And so that's one of our challenges. We've got a signed off document with pathways. What sort of, if pathways were to change, how do we take the whole community on that journey, given the intensive 2 years that it took to produce that initial strategy document? So I don't think we have to answer that question today, but that's another question we're trying to look at. Well, but yeah, thank you for your presentation. Really a lot of excellent research there, and we're all looking, no one wants to spend more than we have to. And I think Cyclone Gabriel has, highlighted a number of vulnerabilities that we've been aware of on our coast, so thank you.
If I can just quickly respond to that. If that, totally understand that pathway, and all we're asking, I suppose, for that pathway is some room for innovation, because there are new products. This product wasn't out there, yeah, I don't believe, during that conversation. So, and this has gone through the rigorous Greater Wellington Regional Council consenting process. So there are some precedences there that weren't there maybe before. So food for thought.
I just as a question, I appreciate the TAG's going to look into it, but I wonder whether seeing it only as a short-term solution is thinking broadly enough, because building a large gravel hump, unstructured, and replenishing it, with this enormous amount of, is where the plan's based. Looking at that model, and I'm not an engineer, but it seems clear to me that if you build that model and it's honeycombed and you can build it higher and stack it up, that's more stable, more rigorous, or more resilient than a gravel heap that the sea is pushing around all the time and that you keep throwing more gravel in. in incredible numbers to try and combat it, that instead of having a large gravel berm that you have to make really huge because of the sea and because it's unstable, that if you had an eco reef structure underpinning that, it might also be a long-term solution that has better outcomes than just piling up gravel in huge numbers and hoping that the sea won't, wreck it.
I think there's also a key to it. We talk about all right through this whole process I've been involved with, being adaptive pathway. And perhaps we're suggesting this is one of the adaptations that we should make and start thinking about as a group.
Good. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Owen?
So I don't see that as a solution for that whole cell. It's going to work in, 200-metre section, but there's still another 2 or 3 kilometres of coastline that has been protected by the strategy that is in the strategy. So it's not one or the other. It sounds like it's both, and so it's not replacing.
Lindsay?
I think there's a question outstanding for me around how different is it actually from our strategy? So to me, I look at it and it looks like, when you put a gravel path in your garden, but now you can buy those matting that you put down and it holds the gravel in your gravel path. And to me, it kind of just looks like that.
It's a similar, more engineered version of that, absolutely. Yep.
And at the end of the day, what you end up with is a gravel path that functions as a better gravel path. And so is it not just a better way of affecting our strategy? So I suppose that's part of the questions that TAG's going away to answer.
That's correct, yeah.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, stand first, and then I'll come back to you.
Kia ora, Chair. Hey, guys, thanks for the presentation and the passion and the energy that goes with that. Couple of questions. One, I noticed the Ngawi, it wasn't a flat wall. It was, it's honeycomb, but it had some extensions.
Yep.
I wondered whether that was intentional and just your mock-up, it was just showing a flat surface. So it was just a curiosity.
Yeah, it is intentional. The Ngawi was the first wall, so really that was the trial, but it is those extensions are there for breaking up that wave as it comes in a bit more, and I think as they develop the product, which they have been doing, they've probably got a much better understanding of how they should be built. And the other point, which I don't think we've discussed about that, is something like this provides a much better access way to the beach, whereas a rock wall or something like that, which is something been done, which is great, provides erosion protection, but for residents getting down to the beach a bit more.
Right. So my other question is thinking about end of life. So for all the other projects in the strategy, they have an end of life allowance. So it's a disestablishment. So is that, how should we be thinking about that in the context of eco reef? You mentioned it's 100-year design life. I think 50 is the figure that we use. So from a costing and just a way of thinking about it, how do we think about that? Or is that something that TAG will worry about?
Yeah, that comes into any discussion about that would have a structure in it, including rock wall. I don't know the answer to that. This is being sold as being able to be constructed and deconstructed very easily, provided it hasn't gone beyond its end of life and disintegrated. So the blocks are dropped with lugs filled in, and they're just as easily pulled out and replaced if required. So 100 years' time, there may be a cost to be able to do that. I imagine I'd be interested to know if there was a costing done, what that cost would be relative to an ongoing coastal erosion mitigation of, a gravel fill, which Roy mentioned, 50,000 cubes a year being trucked down to the beach. It'd be interesting.
It's possibly a more minor, a technical question, but yep. If something's going to be constructed and then the asset's going to transfer over to the regional council eventually, then I would have thought to be consistent with other structures, we'd have to, ask the same question.
Yeah,
thank you.
For sure.
No.
Yeah, thank you. Chris, any timeframes around when TAG will get back to us about this proposal?
Did we put anything in our paper? I'm not.
Yeah, we're proposing the next meeting, which is in July the 5th, I think it is. So the next meeting of this committee.
Thank you. Good.
Oh, sorry. It's not related to this, but it's associated. So after you, Sophie.
Thank you, through you, Chair. It sounds like Hastings District Council have been doing some work on it, so I'm assuming that there'll be a connection between TAG, I mean, Graham's here. If some of that assessment's already been done and made, we'll be picking up on that. Yeah? We've gone quite a long way with it? Yeah.
And of course, we have an arrangement under our future proposal that Hastings will contact us and give us information what they're planning to do. Because at the moment, while the strategy is actually not formalised, it is still on your turf, so to speak, Hastings District Council's turf. And so they will continue to work with it. We won't be against that and we'll work against that. But at the same time, they have an obligation to actually inform us what is happening. And I think this process is actually now really well developed, so there shouldn't be no issues there. Good.
Yeah, so associated with this, and for completeness, there was a meeting with Regional Council, Hastings District Council, September last year, where this was first proposed or raised. There were two other issues between the two councils that also need to be resolved along the coast there. One is the variation to consent for renourishment Haumoana seacrest, and the other is the stormwater pump in Haumoana. So while this is one issue and a lot of detail here, those other two have still got to be progressed as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely won't be resting until this is out of the way, because then we'll be waiting for a long time.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
That will be progressed as we speak. You know, nothing will be stopping this. So, okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah. Just going on our paper here, I see our time frame is 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we've got that long? Like, I've lived out there a long time, and right at that exact place, I've seen 10 to 20 metres of beach disappear in one day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've got that long.
Mr. Simon?
Could I reply to that? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm not sure which paragraph you referred to there, but I think that's in the context of.
Number 10 under discussion.
Yeah, well, perhaps I got out with that seeing as I wrote that paragraph. So, yeah, it's a fair point. And that's, I guess, the heart of the issue, right, is that the strategy is long-term for 100 plus years and for a long stretch of coastline. So we are taking a long time to get this kind of big thing moving and implemented. Even once it's adopted, there's still a whole consenting process to come to actually get those interventions consented. So the point is that I think this strategy probably can't deliver this solution in the short term. So at the moment, Hastings is working with these guys on that possible solution. Graham may have an update for us on where that's up to, but at the moment it's sitting between Hastings and this community. Our question is, if it is progressed, does it tie in well with what the overall strategy is proposing to do longer term? Is there a neat connection there or not? And that's what we'll come back to with at the next meeting, is how would these things sort of fit together, strategy and this potential short-term fix.
Maybe in reply to that, you're right. You know, 10 metres of beach can disappear in one night. So the risk is real. It might be next year, it might be next week, it might be in 5 years. But we could wake up with the front page of the Hawke's Bay today saying there's no stormwater system in Te Wonga, 350 houses with no stormwater system. And, you know, that's catastrophic. And so time is of the essence. This is our third presentation. We did something similar on Tuesday at the District Council. I did one last week to the Regional Council. I guess from a community of people living on the brink there, our plea is between the funding issues, which we're going to be wrestling with the District Council, the consenting issues, which the Regional Council can help, or some might say hinder, the speed of the process. And this group, who need to kind of help tie those councils together and to give them the green light, we're desperate that they work in a collaborative way so that we're not getting pushed from pillar to post with the council saying, oh, that's not us, it's over there, or, you know, that, because that has been, as you saw with Keith's presentation a month ago, and I hope you're sort of still living with the heartfelt reality of 15 years of feeling that you get somewhere and then you get blocked by another legislation or individuals who feel that this isn't right, you know, this is urgent. And I think on the flip side of the urgency, as I said earlier, I see a very cool story for Hawke's Bay and for New Zealand. That this project gets put in, you put in 500 or 600 metres, we measure it for 2 years, and it potentially has the ability to lessen the enormity of this problem. You know, that is a pretty cool place for Hawke's Bay to stand up in a New Zealand context and say, we didn't wait 5 years to start a consenting process. We got on, and we've got something that's really influential. And I personally think this is a game changer that we should be really excited about and jumping on.
Great, thank you. Simon?
So I was just wondering whether Graham had any updates from the Hastings side of things, not to put you on the spot, Graham, but.
Over there is fine.
Yeah, look, firstly, just to endorse what Tom and the guys have presented here, they've presented this situation and the challenge, you know, as starkly as it is for the community and for Hastings District Council in terms of our assets in that area. The challenge we have is confronting the issue of erosion and inundation, and Chris's comment's correct that this is first and foremost a reaction to an immediate erosion threat. But I think, and Roy speaks to it eloquently in terms of saying, you know, these new initiatives are something that we should not be sort of afraid of or use those as reasons not to try things. And for me, it's a little more fundamental, having built the two substantial Clifton and Cape View Corner rock revetment structures. This is just another revetment structure with much more modern materials. And to your analogy of a gravel path, and you put some mesh in it, well, it's still a gravel path. And so these things are complementary with, and the memorandum of transition with the existing structures, we managed to get through that on the basis that it's certainly in the range and suite of options that fit well within the strategy. In this particular circumstance, it's also horses for courses. It's in a slightly, which is a little bit perverse, it's in a slightly better protected place than certainly the Cape View Corner structure that takes a real hammering from the east. But it's got this perverse circumstance of the river and the geometry and the sediment transport out of the river that's actually unique to this area. So I think this, along with the Westlock, which is another new modern, and we simply have no more experience than what they are, which is 1 to 2 to 3 years. But in this application, the risks aren't any greater than the other risks, and I think it's the analogy of another tool in the toolbox is the way to think about these things. Our challenge is, alongside these guys, is, and sorry, they presented the same presentation to our council a couple of days ago. We're now going back with another workshop, and they want me to put a little bit more flesh on the bones as to the significance and relevance to our infrastructure. And I say the devil's in the detail, and the hoary chestnut is who pays what, and the public-private good challenges that this group's grappled with for a good many years as well. But Roy's right, we need to make some decisions, and we need to make them in a time frame that the headline isn't, we were smart, but we waited too long, and, we've already had that experience in July of last year.
I guess it may not be a perfect solution. There may be some questions we can't answer. There may be some risk around those questions. But the alternative is to wait for a long time for another solution with other risks. And, the option of not building now, I think the risks around that and the cost implications of that far outweigh both the cost and if we wait for a perfect solution, we're going to end up with option A, do nothing and see what happens. And those risks are too big to bear, really, to ignore.
No, excellent, okay. Let's, we come, I think, to a point of discussion. I've still got plenty of technical questions, but I think we now are more talking general of what we think of this, and definitely it's a great solution that you brought forward. There isn't a solution that's perfect. The only solution is that we don't have climate change and we revert back to our natural state. But we don't have that luxury. That ain't happening. So we need to find solutions, and none of them, because all solutions will cost, so there will be people who actually won't find that the perfect solution either. So that's really difficult, and that's the wicked problem that we have to deal with as a committee. But as a committee, we can definitely see that this is part of what we're here for. As councillors, we want to find solutions and we want to help out. We haven't even talked about the issue that actually is related to the Hawke's Bay Regional Council issue if this inundation would happen, because it's a stormwater collection point. We then all of a sudden have to step in as well, because we are the one, as Hawke's Bay Regional Council, that are responsible of taking that water out of the lagoon and into the sea. And if it would be inundated and we have issues, then the Hawke's Bay Regional Council all of a sudden becomes a partner in the issue that we have to deal with. So we haven't talked about that either today, but I think we all understand what we're trying to achieve here, and we've given undertaking once we've accepted this paper that we actually will move this forward. It's going to TAG. We'll hear back from TAG on the 5th of July, and hopefully you will be taking a serious note of what will be said then and what the planning is going forward. And definitely, I do agree, 3 to 4, maybe even 5 years is far too long. And we definitely felt the pain that Keith had and explained to us at the last joint committee meeting. He had been involved that long, and it was really difficult. And to have these blocks constantly appearing when there are solutions, and even solutions that maybe may not work, but at least we have given it a try, and that's really where we need to go. So on that note, if I complete, unless there is any other comments that anyone would like to make, if not, I would like to have somebody move and then seconder, Councillor Corbyn and Councillor Dixon.
Same council.
Same ones, go for
Oh, again. Keith is not here, so we can do it. Haley. All those in favour to accept this paper, and once again, thank you very much for the amazing work that you've done. It's really good that the community comes with solutions, and we'll put our best foot forward to get this to a good outcome. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, that's great.
We might use it, transfer it over.
Okay. We now move to item number 5. No IT involved, some?
Thankfully.
Oh, good. I'll hand it over.
Analog, thank you. Thank you, Chair. This is my regular project manager's report. There's one status change to report on dashboard, which is the funding element, and I really want to highlight that this is a really challenging issue for us that we're butting up against now, and not pretend that it's all green and easy. So I've just noted it as an increasing risk for us as HPRC grapples with long-term plan outcomes and how this all might fit in. So just noting that as a real challenge for this project at the moment. No other status reports to note other than that one. I then go on to mention a couple of central government initiatives. The first is, and I mentioned this verbally at the last meeting because it had just been announced after I'd written the reports for the last meeting, but there's a new climate change inquiry underway as we speak, with submissions being called for. This is the, I guess, 2.0 version of this inquiry, started by the Environment Committee last year and now under the Finance and Expenditure Committee. Whilst our submission on the last climate change inquiry will be considered, TAG's view is that there probably is merit in submitting again to the new inquiry, given that there's a slightly different focus and it is a new committee with a new sort of remit. Unfortunately, timeframes are not on our side, as is usually the case, with submissions closing on Sunday night this weekend. So we do have a draft submission that's circulating around TAG. Our suggestion is that we try and finalise that essentially today, and then with the chair's approval, we'll fire that in. So apologies, a bit of a last minute rush, but that is the nature of these things sometimes. And lastly, the fast track approvals bill, as the chair mentioned, Chris, the chair, and I joined the select committee this morning to speak to the submission this joint committee made. We just highlighted the fact that whilst this committee is a very broad membership, we weren't going to look at the sort of the merits or otherwise of the fast track process, but just to note that I guess the key concern from this committee is we've seen how hard it is to deal with development that's already at risk. So let's not put more development in risky places in future. And that was really, I guess, the key thrust of the submission around the risk of decision making under fast track, not taking into account climate change impacts in the future. What else have I got to say? I think that's probably the main points, Chair. I'm happy to go to questions.
Okay. Have we got questions? Or Simon? Yes. Owen?
The funding model, is that all ready to go with presentation to regional next week?
Thanks for the question. So the joint committee process is technically completed, right? So you've been through your process of debating principles, and at least there's a high level looked at some of the outcomes of that in terms of the average rates increases. The workshop at HBOC is happening next week. So at the moment, we're on track to attend that. TAG has a further update to give to you during the workshop session today on sort of where things are up to with that, so we can dive a bit more into details of where that's currently sitting. So it's not really a yes, but there's more to discuss later today.
So there could be some variation to what we looked at last meeting?
Well, we'd like to discuss that with you, yeah. Yep.
I've got a question. So our new submission, who will be working on that on behalf of HBRC? Is that Gavin again, or?
Yeah, so look, Mark Clues and Gavin have done a great job drafting what we have so far, and it's a really well developed submission already. It's sitting with me at the moment to sort of provide any feedback in it.
Okay.
I was hoping to then essentially use you as the gateway to lodge it, if you're happy with that. Yeah. We just haven't got time to do a full process, unfortunately, but I'm not sure, Gavin or Mark, if you want to speak to some of the high points on the new submission.
Mark, maybe come forward and grab a microphone. While he's walking slowly, he's thinking, what shall I say? You know, what was in that submission again?
Yeah, look, the submission is really a cut-down version of the one you put in earlier, so we've used the material that you've already seen fairly much and just sharpened it up to highlight some of the real key points. Some of them were mentioned this morning around taking the community with you, but also very much around there being a rigorous process and some national parameters about what good practice looks like that local communities can work within. So all of that good stuff that this committee and other people did earlier on, we've just used that and sharpened it up to say, we're here, you've got our submission, it's a full one, but we want to highlight these things for you just to give you a snapshot of where we're coming from.
Excellent, good. Yeah. Well, if that's the case, I'm offline during the weekend if it's going to be late. Like last time, I was sitting on the lawnmower on, I think, 6 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and Gavin was still sending me text, you know, trying to get it across the line. And we got it across the line, and once again, thanks for that time and putting that extra work in, you know. So you've got my thumbs up. Okay. Okay, any questions for Mark or for Gavin? If not, any questions regarding the paper? If not, can I please have a mover and a seconder? I have Zan as one from HBRC, and I've got Malcolm from Hastings District Council. All those in favour to accept the paper, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against, the ayes have it. Thank you very much, Simon, for doing that work. Just now move into the next item. Okay, and Rebecca is coming to the front. I'll ask Simon to introduce this.
I think, Chair, I might hand straight to Rebecca to give us an update. I know that Chris also has an update to give, so what's the best order?
So maybe Rebecca can cover the totality of the paper, and then I'll speak specifically to some revised timing around the the pre-engagement. So we'll start with you, Rebecca. Thank you.
So as we've brought to this committee before, we're going to be doing some early engagement ahead of consultation with the community, just so there's a greater awareness and understanding of what is being proposed. And I've gone into detail in the paper around what that looks like. So we've got some community events, videos, social media, media release, and then updating the website. So that is kind of what we'll be doing. So it's information, but it's not going too hardcore. Yeah, I can answer any more questions. We've already started filming, so thank you, Elwyn and Hayley, who came out, and we fortunately weren't rained on this morning, but we've started.
Yep, and so look, the update around item number 6 there in the paper is that internally at a staff level at the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, we've been mapping out all of the activities around consultation, including finalising the LTP. And so the message there is we really need to push that pre-consultation out of August just to give us a little bit of room. And commencing on the 1st of July, pretty much as the LTP process ink is drying, was perhaps a little bit too soon. So that's just a key update for today.
Okay, that's understood what that means and what that will have. And I was just going to ask Jenny, is there anything in October, November that is major on the calendar that we are talking to the community about, so that we just had a feeling that we sort of sandwiched in between two activities, and that's why we took that particular calendar date.
No, not for October and November. In November,
Hi everyone, I'm Jenny Kewen. I'm the comms team lead here at Hawke's Bay Regional Council. So for October and November, in November we're generally just leading up to our summer campaign. So swim through summer, checking water quality, that kind of thing, rather than anything more significant than that. So
we're not running into a major communication body that is high on the stakes that we may actually be forgotten or not seen.
Not at this stage.
Okay, great, thank you. That's good. Hayley?
Have we got the ability to check in what the other two councils are doing and check that we're not falling on top of another major consultation with them as well?
I have asked that question a couple of times, but I haven't heard back, so I'll follow up on that.
If they knew of something, they should have got back to you by now, hopefully. That's good. Okay. Any other questions? Sam?
Thank you, Chair. Probably a question for staff. And it's around whether this is going to be a standalone consultation or whether it could or should be bundled up with other issues that regional council may choose. So it is possible that as a result of regional council's own LTP deliberations, there may be some changes that regional council feels it needs to make to its own LTP. Question is views, and I'm just interested in views from the committee and from staff about the issues or perspectives on bundling other LTP changes that this regional council may need to process with this particular. Is that a good thing, bad thing, or people are indifferent about that? I think I feel it would be useful to get some feedback on that.
So I'm happy to start a response. So I think, so first thing we'd need to do some work around that, but the starting position from the consulting on a new activity of a coastal strategy, the thought that it needed to be standalone, and it was quite complex because we've got all councils involved in the activity to some extent at the moment. We've got transition of assets potentially to the regional council, and we've got regional council commencing a new activity on behalf of the region. So because of that complexity, the original strategy was as a standalone, so it wasn't confused with other things. But of course, things change, and we would potentially need to relook at the efficiency of doing any LTP amendments. and what was most important and the relative timings and those sorts of things. So it's, I think what I'm painting a picture of is the original thoughts was to go standalone, but we don't know what will happen next year, and we might need to reconsider that.
Any other comments?
Kia ora through you, Chair. I was just wondering, as far as tangata whenua, and I see tangata whenua mentioned frequently, including tangata whenua. So if we're talking about video footage, is there any Māori presenting any video footage in any of your?
Not currently, because we're focusing for the pre-consultation engagement on having joint committee members and TAG, just giving high-level overview of kind of the key points. Coming into consultation is definitely intention.
Sure. Okay, because we are at the table, so, you know, if there are any types of video series going out, you know, there's a high expectation that, you know, tangata whenua are included in that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to come back to Zan's question again regarding bundling and to see whether any of the other.
Thank you, Chair. It's a large enough body of work to stand alone on its own 2 feet. There's a lot of work going on behind it. It's got years of experience behind it. I would think it has to stand on its own 2 feet. You can't confuse it with anything else that's out there.
Yeah, I concur, and I think there's a risk that the public might perceive it that we were trying to hide it in behind something else, to slip it through, and obviously that wouldn't be what we were trying to achieve. But I know with previous consultations at Napier City Council, when we said, well, we've consulted with you on this because it was bundled in with something else, people were like, well, no, I never got a leaflet about a particular issue. So that would be a risk that we would have to consider.
Anyone else?
I agree with both Malcolm and Hayley. The original intent was standalone, and the reasons for that are still valid.
Good, thank you. Oh, that's welcome feedback. That's really good and a good question. That's very helpful. Any other questions for Rebecca or staff? If not, can I please have a mover and a seconder that we receive and note the communications engagement update staff report? Nigel and Owen. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
No, ayes have it. Thank you. And Rebecca, if you don't hear, just send me another email. Okay, we'll go to item number 7, which is current coastal projects update. Coming back to you again, Simon?
Chair, thank you. I'm sure we can take this one as read, but if there are questions on any particular projects, we could welcome those from the committee, and we've got staff here from each council that can help with any answers.
Great, and that will really help with the time that we're taking as we are nearing 11:30. Not that I want to start the discussion, of course, or questions, not at all. Any questions regarding any of these projects that are being undertaken? If not, then I would like to receive a mover and a seconder.
It's not well, perhaps it is a question. I mentioned those two other, the amendment to the resource consent for Hamawana, whether that should be considered as a current project.
Yeah. So happy to add that in. So that sits with Hastings, I understand. It's their existing consent.
Well, Hastings has to work out what amendment it wants.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's been on the table for 9 months now, so that I think it should be in here.
The pumps at Hamawana,
well, the pump is a stormwater issue, not a coastal issue, but it's still relevant. It needs to be progressed. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take any more work on as we already have.
No, but it's already on.
Okay.
So I can provide a brief update on that if pleases the committee, Chair.
Okay, fair enough.
So with that, we've obviously taken that on board, and our staff have had, I think, a number of discussions locally. As a response to Gabriel, we're reviewing all of our schemes over really the next 2 years. So that Hamawana scheme is part of that review. And some key questions in that review of what is the current level of service being delivered by infrastructure, what's the potential impact of that level of service due to climate change, and how do we address growth in the urban environment and things like that. And so out of those, we'll get a comprehensive list of potentially capital programs to improve levels of service where they need improving. And then our council, through annual and LTP plans, will need to prioritise and dial in sort of the pace and scale of any changes there. So that all of that work is currently being done.
Did you say that was a 2-year?
So all of our schemes over 2 years, precisely where that scheme is across all 25 schemes, I haven't got that in my head.
You'll get to hear about it next time when we meet again.
Well, the question was going to be, where is the Hamawana pump in the 2-year scheme?
Yep, so I'll get back to you on that. I'll just send you an email and we'll email the committee, yep.
And from now on, we'll report it on your request, so there you go. Good.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I've got a mover and a seconder, which was Councillor Harding and Councillor Dixon, being of two different councils. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. Then we go to the last item, item number 8, and that is the update on follow-ups from previous meetings. Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I'll just highlight perhaps just one of them. So they're all either completed or well underway, but there's one I want to highlight, which is Action 4, that Timothy Pōkai Whenua has asked for a record of engagement with mana whenua the last sort of 10 years. I know you've asked for that a couple of times, so it is happening. There's lots to trawl through and pull out. It's taking a bit of time, but it's certainly something we will prioritise and get back to shortly, particularly acknowledging we've got a meeting coming up at Matahiwi Marae, right? So you want that ahead of that meeting. So just acknowledging it's a work in progress. Apologies you haven't got it yet, but you will do as soon as possible. Other actions, Chair, are either completed or works in progress, but welcome any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions for Simon? They're not. Just a question, when is the meeting proposed at Matahiwi Marae again?
Oh. No one knows.
Yeah, I've had a few emails, but it hasn't been confirmed.
Okay.
I've booked it in for the 4th of July at 5:30.
Okay.
But yeah, it hasn't been confirmed. I haven't had a confirmation email back from it, but we're booked in down there.
Okay.
And just on that, these guys are up here. I know a lot of those people out there, and I talk to a lot of them, and they're very interested to come to that meeting.
Okay, sure.
And Clive, and Hamawana, and Wakatu.
Good. So as a note...
I've got a meeting invite, which I've accepted for the 4th of July.
Okay. And Hayley, you're going to be there as well? As long as one of the, because unfortunately, I'm overseas, and I really would like at least one of the deputies to be there.
I'll be there.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
I haven't been invited.
You haven't been invited?
Oh, no.
Talk to the person next to you. I think that's going to be a really good meeting, you know? Yeah. It'll be really good. And these are the kind of meetings where you learn a lot, definitely as governors, members of the Joint Committee. It's really important. And sometimes you hear things that are not actually that pretty, but you need to hear them. So, and I haven't asked Rebecca the previous item. I really like actually hall meetings where actually you meet with the people as a group, and then those who generally are relatively quiet, they can listen what's hearing, and all of a sudden they pluck up the courage to actually speak. And I think that's really important, that the community actually is able to speak and not as individuals come up to a 6'5" councillor and feel intimidated. So I think hall meetings are really great, and they're enjoyable, and that's how you get to know the people that have a real passion. So sorry to digress. We've got a. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to accept the update report? Owen and Nigel. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. Good. That concludes the meeting. That would be really great. And can I please ask you again to close? That would be great.
So can I ask, are we moving into a workshop
Yes, we are.
Are we
Shall
okay if we leave our hui open and we close at the end of the workshop?
I'd happy to do that. Yep, great, excellent. Good suggestion. Okay, thank you.